everyone, it's Carly and welcome back to my channel. So today's video I'm going to be doing the 25 bookish facts about me. I found it really hard to find 25 facts about myself. I don't know why, but I always, that doesn't seem like a lot, but I don't know, I just found it really hard to find 25 different things about me and books. So this is the best that I got. So without further ado, I'm just gonna jump right into it. So number one is that I absolutely love and adore to reread books. I love just rereading anything that I read in the past, whether it was from when I was a really young kid, or even if it was just last year and it was a book that I really loved and dear to my heart. I just love rereading books. Number two is that fantasy is my favorite genre. I haven't read much adult fantasy, but I read a lot of young adult fantasy, and I don't know, I never used to read fantasy. I don't know why, but up till a couple years ago I started to read young adult fantasy and I absolutely loved it. The book that actually got me into teen fantasy or young adult fantasy was Caraval by Stephanie Garber, and ever since then I have been obsessed. And number three is sci-fi is actually my least favorite. I know like fantasy and sci-fi sometimes go together, but I don't know why. I just can't get into sci-fi. I have tried basically a couple books, even teen or young adult and adult sci-fi, and I just cannot get into it. Number four is that I rarely on occasion DNF books. Sometimes I'll be in that mood where I will go through my bookshelves and I will kind of look at the ones that I'm really iffy about, if I want to read them or not. So I will go ahead and read the synopsis of it. If the synopsis still intrigues me and I know that I'm gonna love it, then I will keep it. If I am not interested anymore from the story, or I've just heard like negative things and I just really don't want it on my shelves, then I will just get rid of it. But if I start a book and I feel like I need to finish. Now sometimes there will be times where I will read a book and I put it down, but I don't DNF it. I kind of just leave it for another time, or I'm just not in the mood for it at the moment. Like I really enjoy what I'm reading, but I'm just not interested at the moment. An example would be right now, The Nightingale. That is a very, I don't want to say hefty book, but it's a very hard-hitting book, and I just wasn't emotionally prepared for it when I started reading it, so I had to set it down and just, I'm gonna wait for another time before I pick it up again. Number five is that Chapters Indigo here in Canada is my absolute favorite bookstore. It is the biggest bookstore in Canada. There's many locations all across all the provinces. It's kind of like the United States' Barnes & Noble. And number six, speaking of Chapters Indigo, I actually work at Chapters Indigo. I have been there for almost 2 years and I absolutely love it with all my heart. My coworkers are so much fun and the customers are so much fun, and it is honestly one of the best jobs I've ever had. Number seven is I read the first Harry Potter book when I was 8 years old. I know some people might have read it younger when it came out. They were like 6 or something like that, but I wasn't a huge reader. I was still in like my Judy B. Jones phase, and I just didn't really want to read anything else besides Judy B. Jones, so I actually didn't pick up the first Harry Potter book until I was 8 years old. Number eight is I actually don't have a favorite author. Now, there are authors out there that I absolutely love and I will literally read anything that they put out, but I don't have a certain favorite. I know a lot of people specifically like Sarah J. Maas, or like Neil Gaiman, or Jenny Han, just like any, like they just specifically, that's like their favorite author. Like they will still read other things, but that is their favorite author. For me, I don't have a favorite author. I don't know, I just don't have one. Maybe I just haven't found an author that I will actually say, no, he or she, this is my favorite author. Number nine is that I prefer reading paperbacks. I like the looks of hardcover, but reading them is okay for me, and I absolutely cannot stand mass market paperbacks. Number 10 is that all of my series have to match. And what I mean by that is that either they all need to be either paperback series or hardcover series. Like I can't have like one paperback, one hardcover in a series, and like the rest all like mass market paperbacks. Like, that is just ridiculous. Number 11 is my first audiobook ever that I ever listened to was The Land of Stories by Chris Colfer, The Wishing Spell. That is the first in the series, and I absolutely loved it. Number 12 is that I have never and will not ever dog ear a book. Number 13 is that I have only participated in one readathon, and that was the 'Tis the Season-a-thon last winter around like Christmas time. I think it was December. It was December or November? No, I'm pretty sure it was December. Number 14 is that I don't like eating and reading at the same time. I mean, if I'm eating breakfast or lunch or dinner or whatever I'm eating, I prefer listening to an audiobook rather than physically reading a book. Just because I feel like if I read my book, I'm going to just be so into that book that I'm not even going to eat my food. So, number 15 is that I don't like to lend my books out. Now, I have a story because this drove me nuts. So, a couple years ago, I lent out a book to one of my friends, and she basically kept it for like 3 or 4 months, and it was a poetry book, and she didn't even read it. And I was like, okay, when are you gonna give me my book back? Like, I kept asking her, I'm like, hey, like, do you mind if I just have my book back? And she's like, oh yeah, that's fine. And I didn't get it back for another 4 months, and I asked her, I said, so what did you think of the book? And she's like, oh, I didn't even read it. Really? So yeah, I just don't like doing that anymore. Number 16 is that I have not been keeping up to date with my reading goals this year. If you watched my 2019 reading goals, you would know that I am trying to read one book at a time. Yeah. That's hard for someone who likes to read and wants to read all the books. So I honestly just end up reading at least 3. So yeah, I have not been very good at that so far. Number 17 is that I need to read in complete silence. I need no music, no background noise, none of that. I need silence when I read, because I just get really distracted and I tend to focus on other things. So yeah. Number 18 is I prefer not to read on my couch, but I always read on my couch because otherwise I would fall asleep in my bed. So even though the bed is like the comfiest place to read, I cannot do that. Number 19 is, besides Harry Potter, my favorite book as a kid was Charlotte's Web. And 20 is that I used to go to the library all the time as a kid, but as I got older and I wanted to keep these books, I just prefer to buy my books and just so I can own them and read them whenever I want. Number 21 is that I used to be a huge contemporary fan. Now, that might be surprising to some people because, actually not, I guess, because you're literally looking at my contemporary shelf right now. But as I said earlier, my favorite genre is fantasy, but I used to be the biggest contemporary fan. Like, the first contemporary book that I basically read was The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. And then after I read that story, I'm like, oh my god, these books are amazing. I need to read more contemporary. So I basically bought a whole bunch of contemporary books, read them all, and yeah, contemporary used to be my favorite genre before I ever discovered fantasy. 22 is the only book that I've ever actually cried during or while I'm reading was Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. Do I really need to say any more? And 23 is that I do not have a reading schedule. And by that I mean that I don't have a specific time of when I read. I just basically read whenever I feel like it. If I go a day without reading, it's not that big of a deal, to me anyways, but I know that some people, they like to either read before they go to bed or when they wake up in the morning or anything like that, but for me, I don't have a certain schedule of when I read my books. Number 24 is I do not own any duplicates of any books. So Like, for example, I know that there's different copies of different books out there. Like, I know that there's different copies of like City of Bones and like a lot of classics as well. Like, I know that there's so many different options you can get from classics, but like, just, I don't own any other like special copies or anything like that. I just own one copy per book basically. And the last one, number 25, is that I don't own an e-reader or a Kobo or a Kindle or anything like that. I don't own anything like that. I have never actually read off of an e-reader before, but I feel like I just wouldn't like it that much just because I just like to have the physical book while I'm reading. So yeah, and I don't really plan on getting one just because I prefer the physical copy. Alright guys, that was it for my 25 bookish facts about me. I hope that you got to learn more about me and my reading habits and what kind of books I like to read. And yeah, I hope you guys like this video and subscribe if you want to see more of me and more of my content. And I hope you guys are having a great week, and I will talk to you later. Bye.